You are sitting in a room with strangers, but for the first time in years, you do not feel strange. You feel entirely seen. The person across from you is nodding as you speak, maintaining deep, unwavering eye contact. They are listening to you as if you hold the missing piece to a puzzle they have been trying to solve their entire lives.
You didn't come here looking for a cult. No one ever does. You came because you were going through a transition, a breakup, a cross-country move, a profound loss. You were in the space between who you were and who you are becoming, feeling a quiet, persistent ache of isolation. Then someone invited you to a dinner or a study group. They said you seemed like someone who asks the right questions.
Within hours of walking through the door, the ambient anxiety of modern life evaporates. The people here are remarkably warm. They remember the names of your siblings after you mention them once. They mirror your values and your frustrations with the world. They tell you that your sensitivity is your greatest strength. You feel a rushing sense of relief. You think, I have finally found my people. We like to believe that only the naive or the unintelligent fall into these environments. It is a comforting lie we tell ourselves to feel immune. But the forensic reality is different. High control groups actively recruit the highly intelligent, the deeply empathetic, and the fiercely idealistic. They want people with the drive to build a better world, because that drive is a powerful engine, and engines can be hijacked.
What you are experiencing in that room is not serendipity. It is a highly structured, meticulously rehearsed operation. The warmth you feel is weaponized. The deep listening is a data-gathering operation designed to map your psychological vulnerabilities. The environment has been engineered to bypass your intellect and speak directly to your biology, dismantling your defenses before you even realize you are under threat. Which brings us to the most unsettling question of all. If this profound sense of connection was actually the first stage of an invisible prison, what exact psychological machinery was running quietly beneath the surface?
We often assume that falling into these groups is a failure of intelligence. It is not. In fact, some of the most highly educated and analytical minds are the most vulnerable. This happens because coercive control does not target your intellect. It targets your fundamental human psychology. It exploits our innate need for connection, meaning, and certainty.
Think of the work of psychologist Robert Cialdini on the principle of commitment and consistency. You are never asked to surrender your life on day one. You are asked for a weekend retreat, then a small donation, then a change in your diet. Each tiny agreement paves the way for the next, locking you into a pattern where saying no feels like a betrayal of your own past choices. When the group demands become extreme or abusive, Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance takes over. Your brain cannot tolerate the conflict between believing you are a smart, good person and recognizing you are participating in something harmful. To resolve this agonizing psychological pain, your mind rewrites the narrative. You convince yourself that the abuse is a test of faith, or that the outside world simply does not understand the higher truth. This systemic manipulation is outlined in Stephen Hassan's BITE model. Cults systematically control behavior, information, thought, and emotion. They dictate who you speak to, what you read, and how you process your own feelings. Doubt is reframed as a personal moral failing. If you question the leader, you are not thinking critically. You are spiritually flawed. And then comes the trap of trauma bonding. The very same leadership that terrorizes you will occasionally offer intense, euphoric validation. This creates a biological roller coaster of stress and relief, binding you to your abuser the exact same way a hostage bonds with their captor. You become addicted to their approval to soothe the anxiety that they themselves created. The architecture of this trap is devastatingly effective. It replaces your authentic self with a compliant identity, severing you from reality while convincing you that you have finally found the ultimate truth.
But if the psychological walls are built so high and the locks are placed on the inside of the mind, how does anyone ever break free?
Breaking free from a psychological prison requires a map of the mind. Long before modern psychology named cognitive dissonance, ancient philosophers were mapping the architecture of human freedom. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this well. He spent his early life enslaved, subjected to the absolute coercive control of another human being. Yet he realized that while his physical environment was dictated by a master, his ruling center, his mind, could remain untouchable. This brings us to the Stoic dichotomy of control, which serves as the direct antidote to the cultic mechanism. Coercive groups survive by completely inverting this fundamental principle. They demand you take responsibility for things entirely outside your control, such as the salvation of humanity or the volatile emotional states of a charismatic leader. At the exact same time, they force you to surrender the only things you actually do control: your own reasoned judgments, your personal boundaries, and your internal moral compass. They scramble your locus of control until you no longer know where the organization ends and your authentic self begins. When we look at the devastation of identity replacement, we're witnessing an assault on what the Stoics called the inner citadel. A high-control group wants to demolish your private sanctuary and replace your independent voice with the voice of the ideology. Stoicism teaches us that no external force can breach that inner citadel unless we are manipulated into handing over the keys. The ultimate psychological defense is the discipline of assent. It is the rigorous practice of stepping back from an overwhelming emotional demand, creating a pause, and refusing to automatically agree with what you are instructed to feel. If you want to build a mind that cannot be easily hacked by manipulative systems, hold on to this one practice. When you feel that sudden, crushing pressure to ignore your own doubts, stop and ask yourself one specific question. Is this belief truly mine, or is it simply a required performance to keep me safe within the group? The cult psychology continues this investigation. Understanding these mechanisms is the most powerful protection. True freedom does not begin the day you physically walk away. It begins the moment you finally reclaim the quiet authority of your own mind.